Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Hassan Clay. And again, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for you to be able to, for me to have you to attend, for me to have you attend this podcast. I definitely appreciate it. Goes without saying that I truly appreciate your attendance. I completely appreciate the love that's been given to me from the last episode that we came on with our brother Hussein Abdullah. And of course, this podcast is being sponsored by In Style Skin. Glowing skin and healthy skin is always in style. Of course, we have a QR code that you can definitely link to be able to check out the products, the beauty products, um, body butters, soaps, sugar scrubs, all the great stuff that you have to make sure that you and your loved ones are looking well and ready for the occasions. Glowing skin, glowing healthy skin is always in style. So again, our podcast is being broadcast and being live streamed via Restream on Facebook and on YouTube on the Get Made podcast channel. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend and check us out there. So today I have an exciting guest, a special guest, a good friend of mine, a good friend of yours, if you know him. And, he's an attorney up in the Washington, D.C. area. And we're going to talk about mentorship today. And he's a graduate of Morehouse. um, don't know what year, forget what year. I used to know that, to be honest with you. And also has his law degree from Vanderbilt University. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Anu Kemet. Brother Anu, how are you? Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته أخي. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing
Alhamdulillah.
very well. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. That's good, man. So I gave just a brief introduction about yourself. Why don't you fill in some blanks for me?
Well, I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I grew up in various states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Georgia, Florida. I graduated high school from Georgia, so I call Atlanta home. I'm a U.S. service member, and I graduated Morehouse College and went on to Vanderbilt University's law school and divinity school. So I have a master's in ethics along with my law degree. I currently practice in various areas of civil law here in the DC, Maryland area.
Hmm. Okay. And so before we get into a little bit more about yourself, you are the inaugural person who gets to get who gets to get the icebreaker questions for the Get Made podcast. These going to be the Get Made podcast questions, right? And so, first question is going to be three questions. So, first question: what is a book that you have read that you have enjoyed from a high performing author?
So, kind of having been tipped off as to the subject matter of what we're going to talk about, I would recommend a book of by a guy named Richard Reeves, Of Boys and Men,
Mm. I
and
have the
it's
book. Yeah, I know the book. I have the book.
why the modern male is struggling, why it matters, and what to do about it. So that one hit home for me.
Mm.
And
Well,
I'm always loath to just get one book, but if you got to pin me down to a book, that would be something recent.
okay. Well, I tell you what. Give me three. How about that? Give me two more.
Okay. The other one would be the two parent privilege. This is about a woman. She's a scholar from the University of Maryland,
Hmm.
and she's basically just talking about family structure as a basic tool for success or not, or failure. Uh,
Mm.
and very data driven. She just wants just the facts. Okay.
Okay.
The third book would be Outlive: The Science and Art of Longevity, which is basically talking about a lot of the habits that are connected to a long and healthy life. So that was also, I'm a big data person. So
Mhm.
all three of those books I recommend.
Okay. Well, appreciate that. Second question for you. Who is a high performing male that you admire?
Ta-Nehisi Coates. I have a
Okay.
lot of admiration for Ta-Nehisi Coates. Um, one of the reasons I admire him is he has very good arguments, very clear.
Hmm.
Uh, he's said things in a way that he gets to the point. He doesn't have to say
Okay.
a lot of words around it.
Hmm.
Put the concept out there and it gets there clear. That's one of the things I loved about Brother Malcolm. It's
Hmm.
not always that he said things that were original uh,
Okay.
or, or even insightful,
Hmm.
right? But he put it in the best way, right?
Okay.
He got to the heart of the matter in a way that was so clear as to not be able to be questioned. Like this is how it ought to be said. So yeah, Brother Malcolm and Ta-Nehisi Coates writes this way.
Okay. All right. That's a wonderful. That's a wonderful. I literally like to forgot. I forgot about Ta-Nehisi Coates, to be honest with you. And I got a couple of his books that I've read, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. And I don't know, when you said it, I'm like, wow, that is a good guy to kind of admire. Last but not least, what is your thought on the state of manhood of today?
Well, if you're at the top of the manhood food chain, it's excellent. It's never been better. If you're
Mhm.
talking about men in general or black men
Yeah,
specifically,
so that I'm glad you said that, because I'm gonna get directly specific. Black manhood.
oh, we're hanging on by a thread. We're
Mhm.
doing warm up. We're doing the Native American warm up lap, right?
Mhm.
Right before they were taking them out, before they
Mhm.
took their land, before they put them on reservations, before they committed genocide. You know, that didn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
And our circumstance, in my opinion, um, mirrors or mimics, and it's very similar to other native peoples or indigenous people, despite the fact that we were kidnapped. Our
Mhm.
situation here as men is terrible. Terrible. It's horrible.
Horrible. Wow. And you think about that whole aspect of, all right, they already kidnapped a group of people, brought them over. Now they're trying to kill that group of people off, especially the men.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And some of our men even suffer from what they call that Stockholm syndrome. You've been held hostage so long that you're in love with your captors.
Hmm.
You model your captors. You
Hmm.
want to be like your captors. Matter of fact, we could get you together to go kidnap even more people. So,
I
we're
mean, I laugh, right? But that's not really a funny matter. But I mean, it's like sad. The funny comes as a sadness, right?
absolutely.
So all right, and part of it too is you've been Muslim for many, many, many years, right? Family man, um, successful man, right? How was mentorship for you growing up? We're going to jump into this podcast, right? So, how was mentorship? Because that's our subject for today: mentorship and the need for mentorship within our community,
So,
right?
my life was populated full of mentors. Anything I've ever done successfully
Hmm.
was under the tutelage, under the direction and guidance, and with the knowledge of mentors. Okay.
Okay.
In
Hmm.
manhood, I'm assuming, but correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about mentorship in the context of being a successful man.
Right,
It,
a high performing man, right? A high performing man, right?
okay.
And when we say high performing, we're not talking about somebody who has to be like rich and extremely wealthy, but people who are doing things on a consistent basis and who are trying to make strive. They're trying to be in a better position a year from now. They don't want to be the same person or in the same position, right? So in this, he has to be able to do some things to improve his lot in life. Um, and the main thing is being consistent and grounded in his manhood, right? Or in his masculinity, right? So, with that being said, and going back to the question that I asked for you, the mentors that you encountered in life.
Well, the first things I have to say is that I grew up with a single mother. Okay.
Mhm.
And so for me, you kind of have to know that context. Okay.
Mhm.
So growing up in a house with a single mother, you're aware of what's not there, and whether, even if you're not aware of what is there, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So uh, for me, early and often, I was looking for guides, right? Looking for mentors, right?
Okay.
Because the direction that innately or through circumstances that was charted for me,
Mhm.
I knew I needed to get through here, and I knew I didn't have the answers or the directions to get there.
Mhm.
Okay. Could be something as simple as riding a bike. You go to
Mhm.
get on a bike, well, you need help to ride a bike. My mother's just about 5'4", little petite, and just trying to help me ride a bike. It's not that it was impossible, but
Mhm.
that's probably something more common for a man to do. Or we're going to
Right.
go out snowball fights, or actual literal fist fights. How to defend yourself
Mhm.
when you find yourself lost or wandering. You reach for mentors. So all throughout my life, I've reached for mentors. I reached for mentors in sports, mentors in business, mentors in relationships, mentors in career. Like the entire story of my life is the men uh, and the women who have helped me,
Mhm.
guided me, and
Mhm.
corrected me. Uh,
Mhm.
that's the entire story of my life for sure. You just pick any particular portion of it, and I could go into the mentors that I needed and the circumstances that brought about the insight that,
Mhm.
okay, you need help.
Did you know the word itself, mentor, or do you just say, I just needed the help? Because we giving it a title and a label right now, right? But
Mhm.
growing up, did you, I say we, but did you have an understanding that this is the word that you needed to find and that the opposite of that was going to be a mentee? Did you understand that at that time?
I did not at all. And there have been a lot of new words out since I was a kid. I'm Generation X.
Right.
So as a consequence, they've dreamed up a lot. Like we didn't have mental health. We didn't have that when I was coming up. We just
Hmm.
had crazy and not crazy,
Right.
right? We didn't,
I mean, keeping it 100, that's what we used to think, right?
really. All we had was, men and women. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of these words,
Right.
but we had the circumstance, and we had the need, and we had the things that were still going on. So uh, if you wanted to be successful, I ran track. You need a coach. I didn't call my coach a mentor, but clearly he was mentoring me.
Right.
When I got the first job, one time I had a job as a electrician's helper,
Okay.
and I didn't call him a mentor. He was my boss. He
Right.
was mentoring me. My uncle, uh, I'll never forget, he taught me how to change tires and change the oil in the car. We didn't have Jiffy Lube and those type of things when I was coming up. So
Hmm.
again, I called him my uncle. I didn't realize he was my mentor. So
Hmm.
all throughout life, men showed up, and women with guidance,
Hmm.
and I knew they were a help, and I knew they were valuable, whatever the label they were carrying at the time.
Right. So then we definitely want to make sure that we're addressing our audience that we're not really hung up on the label. as the service that we're actually looking for at this point. If you're going to call them uncle this, auntie that, or whatever, just know that that's the shoes that they are filling at the time. Is that's a correct assumption of that or analysis of that? What you're saying?
I would add a friendly amendment because one of the questions that I go around asking young men and women
Okay.
is, do you have any mentors? Okay, and they'll rattle off some names. And I say, well, hold on, let me see what's going on with that relationship. Okay.
Okay.
Because for me, the terms that I use are mentor, advisor, or consultant, and supporter or cheerleader, right?
Right.
Cheerleader, someone, you know, anybody. You might say, hey, listen, I'm going to build a rocket ship and go to Mars, and I'm going to go on corn oil. Go, 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 go. Look at
Right.
you, Mars. You don't even want to stay on Earth now, do you? That's a cheerleader, right?
Okay.
Someone else who was a supporter, they may say, well, listen, I got a friend of mine. He's got a cornfield, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he might be able to give you corn on the cheap, or he throws a lot of corn away, right?
Right.
Someone
Mm-hmm.
who is giving you advice or support,
Mm-hmm.
or even an advisor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you are going to go to Mars, you might in fact try gasoline or diesel,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. When you get out of the atmosphere, the particles are going to separate and whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, but a mentor, right, is someone who gives advice, invests, and therefore has a stake in the outcome, right?
Okay.
People giving you information as you're passing by, they may be helpful, they may be valuable, they may be useful. But if they're not investing, giving of themselves and have a stake in the outcome, they're not the same. Your college counselor probably wasn't a mentor. They
Okay.
were an advisor. And if they cheerleaded or whatever advice they gave you, they're not there to pay the bills. Your parents are there to pay the bills. They're
Right.
not there if the decision is good, bad, or whatever the case may be. So I think
Mm-hmm.
when I think mentor for myself personally, it's someone who invested and was going to be there for the outcome. And if it went wrong, they're there to support you. They're like
Mm-hmm.
backing uh, their advice.
Okay. So then the stake that a mentor plays in a mentee's life is very important. It's like they're actually really putting skin in the game at this
Exactly.
point. Okay. And so, as you say, a person has some type of investment in the person that they're actually working with. When you look good, I look good type of deal.
Exactly. And the
Okay.
opposite. You look bad, you make like a father is beyond a mentor, meets the
Okay.
qualification of all those things and more,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're at least a mentor. You meet multiple levels of qualification, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For example.
Okay. And so I want to stay where we are, right? But you brought that up. And I know some years ago, you and I had some conversation. I want to tune our listeners into this conversation because I won't lie to you. It was a very dynamic conversation. It has influenced me in many ways and some of the things that I think and how I think at this point. And so I want to share that conversation with our listeners real quickly, right? So the conversation is, and I've said this before on some of my reels and some of my podcasts, that as men, young men, we haven't had the opportunity to see our fathers be sons to other men, where women have been able to see their mothers be daughters to other women. And it goes into that thing of even a father or that person being a mentor and more, right? How you just put it. Want you to expound on that just a little bit more for our listeners,
Well, it's been a while since we brought up that subject.
right?
I would go even beyond that.
Okay.
Most men haven't seen men. We just haven't even seen men. We may have seen one dimension of a man. But we
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen all three dimensions, right? We
Ooh,
haven't
yeah.
seen the, we haven't seen the mind, the body, and the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen the internal struggle. We haven't seen the complexity of the external struggle. We haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen the soul, the blood, the sweat, and the tears. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen facsimiles. We haven't seen all the levels of manhood. And so, what I
Mm.
was saying before when we were talking about it is we've only seen other men in limited circumstances and roles. One of the
Right.
questions I ask young people all the time, like, who are the five most successful people that you know? And by
Mm-hmm.
know, I want to know, you would have to be able to call them on the phone, I mean, you have their number. And
Mm-hmm.
when they answer, they know who you are, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, you're okay. And they'll take your call, right? You have to know them at least that well.
Right.
So, what I
Like I
find
can call you, right? And I say, well, I know. Let me call Anu up right quick.
exactly. And I
Mhm.
don't need an introduction. You
Right.
know, I know so and so. No, I know who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I raised that as a test because I talked to young people and I found so many young men who wanted to be athletes or entertainers, some version of it, or
Mm-hmm.
some sort of what do you call this? Business entertainment billionaire. Like
Right.
they've seen business advice and they're entertained and it's very entertaining and they just want to make a lot of money some kind of way.
That's the sum of it right there.
Exactly. So what I
Mm-hmm.
say is like, do you know anybody who's been successful at what you're trying to do? So I know of LeBron James. I don't know LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't qualify as someone who could give me information about it. I
Mm-hmm.
know Little Wayne or Kanye. I know of them. I don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
If I start looking in the circle and I eliminate the people they know of and break it down to who you know, what I find out a lot of times is the five most successful people that they know might be their mama, their granddaddy, uh, just quite often they don't have a real relationship with success.
Mm-hmm.
Back to your point, they don't have a real relationship. And the people that came from the church, I came from the church. I I'm not there anymore, but they
Right.
had to stay in church. Do you know Jesus? Do you have a personal relationship? Do you
Right.
have a personal relationship with a man or men? And a lot of us, a lot of our young men, they don't. They don't know anybody. They don't have a personal relationship. They have an acquaintanceship. They have a
Mm.
familiarity.
A
They don't
familiarity. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
And this familiarity may just be a name, not or a sight, versus what we're saying, even just a casual conversation.
Exactly. And bringing it again back full circle to the point that you made would be
Mm-hmm.
this. I had my college roommate. I've known
Mm-hmm.
him since I was 21 years old, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Known him over 35 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, and I could have said, even as young men, he couldn't be my mentor. And I couldn't say I knew him as a man. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was so much other, I saw him then graduate. So then I knew him in his career. Then I knew
Mm-hmm.
him as a new father, old father. I saw him get married, get divorced. Now I see him as a grandfather, right? We were learning manhood together. So you can't have that in a pure relationship. A guide has to have already been where you're going. And many of us, we may have brotherhood, and I'll put a big may on that, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a relationship with manhood. We don't know men of all stages in all areas of life. We have a
Mm-hmm.
very limited relationship in view of what happens.
Okay.
We're mimicking the one dimension we are exposed to. We mimic it. We don't understand it. We don't have a real relationship and understand it. with it because no one's teaching us. We
Okay.
can't just watch. I can't be a plumber just because I watched plumbers. That's not gonna work.
Right.
Second
Yeah,
how
because I was gonna get to that because when you as you were saying it, then I started thinking there is a difference between mentorship and apprenticeship,
Mhm.
right? Would that be would that be safe to say what you're saying?
I would agree entirely.
Okay.
And manhood is an apprenticeship. You can't learn how to be a man from a book. You can't, oh, I studied up on it, now I am. It's an experience. It's experiential learning that's best taught from those who already know.
Okay. Okay. And so so I know a lot of times then we take mentorship and we compartmentalize it, right? I have a mentor for business. I have a mentor for, family. I got a mentor for, working out or whatever, right? We have all these things that we call in mentorship. Within, if I'm hearing you correctly, a mentor would encompass a fullness in experiences that then would bleed over to the mentee.
If in fact we're talking about a manhood mentor, you're
Okay.
talking about a life mentor, right?
Okay. Hmm.
And in that context, it may or may not be your father. In my opinion, your physical father, if he's performing that role, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
His job is to get you to manhood basic. His
Okay.
job is to produce a basic man. From the point that you're basically a man, right?
Hmm.
It may be your father who continues to mentor you by himself or with others.
Hmm.
It may not. Your physical father may not be your spiritual father. He may not be your vocational father. He may
Hmm.
not be your educational father, right? Like I
Hmm.
have different apex mentors in different areas of my life,
Right.
right? That they've performed a specific role of pouring into me for
Hmm.
that mission. And when that mission was complete, and I'll use the word complete because I don't want to say ended because I'm still educating myself, right?
Right. Right.
That's not over. But the job of being mentored in that way was complete.
Hmm.
So I've had different mentors in different areas of my life, depending on what the mission is,
Hmm.
all throughout the years.
Okay. Okay. And so as we continue to move this conversation along a little bit, um, I understand that one, you do have a program, right, for mentorship, and you're pulling in guys who you feel would be great mentors for young men or for boys, right? What is the criteria for that with your organization? Because everybody's not going to be a good mentor. Just because you're a man or you call and claim yourself to be a man, you may not be suitable for being a mentor. What is
Absolutely
that
right.
criteria? What is that criteria?
So I do not subscribe to the school of thought that someone can self-proclaim themselves as really anything,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
You need to have references. You need to be endorsed, right? In
Hmm.
anything that you do, right?
Hmm.
So, like, I can't just up in one day say I'm an imam. You're an imam. That's a role to perform, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, in Christianity, to be a preacher, you're supposed to have preached a trial sermon. So you had to get someone to anoint you to say, yes, you are.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
So for uh, the group of gentlemen that I'm associated with, uh, we endorse one another in
Okay.
different things, right?
Hmm.
And the endorsement, it's not necessarily a formal process, but it is like it's similar to when we're making salat in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
You know who knows more about what, or who's more qualified in situation if you have male intimacy with one another. Okay. I
Okay.
know you do that better than me because I know I would seek you for this thing
Mm-hmm.
because you are so much more knowledgeable in it, or more accomplished in it, or more dedicated, or disciplined, or focused on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that for us, when men have developed themselves, we understand a man with self awareness understands what he can do and teach others in what he cannot. Right? Like I'm not going to jump out there and start teaching someone tennis. Like I don't. Like,
You don't know nothing about tennis, right?
you know what I'm saying? Okay.
Not enough to be that person, right?
No, I scuba
Mm-hmm.
dive and I
Okay.
have open water and advanced open water, but I would
Mm-hmm.
not teach someone. I'm not a dive master. That's another level. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I can save myself, or because I know CPR doesn't mean I'm going to try to teach it, even if I knew it for years and years and years. So I think for us, what I did was circulate a list of to the brothers with the Google sheet and say, what do you feel competent to mentor in? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of you yourself. And then when the list went around, we can develop a consensus that says, okay, these brothers can teach these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to find young men in need of these things so we can mentor them.
Okay. Okay. So if I'm, I listened to you a little earlier today, and I heard how you really want to find people to guide you and what it is that you are actually looking to do, right? What would be the criteria for a young man in your shoes? Guide him to how to find a mentor.
Well, the first thing is you have to know that you need help and lots of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I know we're using the word mentor,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I always want to push back a little bit from this perspective. Understand that you may need many people. You probably need many people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just one person. There's not a magical wizard. If I could just get to the Wizard of
Right.
Oz,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a heart and a brain and
Right.
courage or
And
whatever. No,
courage. Right. And
no,
home. Right. And home. Right.
and home. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't have to be all wrapped up in one person. It may be a collection of men, the OGs who put you up on game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
first thing is you have to understand the game,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the game is, and understand that you don't know it, and then identify others who do,
Okay.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
went to law school, right? Come out
Mm-hmm.
of law school, say I have a law degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then someone comes up and says, hey, can you help me file my immigration paperwork? I cannot. I know there is help. I know I can't because I've never done it. I
Mm-hmm.
know it can be done, but I
Mm-hmm.
haven't done it. So I have to go find the doers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
not just any doer, the doers who can and will, meaning have a willingness to teach. Because I can identify you as a highly accomplished doer, but if you're not willing to take the time to invest and have the capacity uh, to translate what you know to me, you always hear this. Then it's no benefit. You always hear this the scenario that you know. As we stand here today, Michael Jordan's not a coach.
Right.
Okay, he's supposedly the greatest basketball player ever. He's not a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is currently not a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the greatest players, and matter of fact, it's often the case that the greatest individual accomplishment aren't necessarily the best to teach multiple others how to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one, you got to understand the mission. 2, you have to understand that you don't know how to get there without assistance, right? And that's really an important point, because many of us are resilient, we're dedicated, and we're going to persevere, and we'll wander until our feet fall off. We're not going to give up trying to get there. We're also not going to get there, but we're determined to try in the wrong way. If you don't understand you need help, you need a guide, and the only way you're going to get there on your own is accidentally, and maybe half dead and half alive, then you won't be looking for help. You won't be looking for mentorship, right? You've seen you're just driving around the city. You're going to drive until your gas runs out.
Run out.
You're not going to ask for help and directions. You don't realize that you're lost.
You think that's a part of it? You think that's a little ego, pride? What do you believe that to be?
Well, it can be ego. It can be pride. But I mean, ultimately it means that you're underdeveloped, right? If you have so much pride and ego that you're willing to drive until your gas runs out, because there's a signal saying the gas is running out. There's a signal saying, you set out at 9 a.m. to be there by 5 and it's midnight. Okay. Allah doesn't leave us without guidance. He's letting you know that you're lost if you don't know, but you know, right? So you have to respond to the circumstance and not react. Ego is a reaction, right? It's the reaction of an undeveloped person.
Right.
Imagine being so manly and so full of ego that you're just going to drive until you're lost and out of gas. This is absurd.
Well, and I believe this society, in a sense, with the whole aspect of individuality and everybody trying to be their own person, right, promotes that level of ignorance.
Absolutely. The white man who, hold on, am I allowed to say white man?
Look, this is the Get Made podcast, bro. Speak your mind, all right?
The white man is the original mob, right? He's the original clan, right? He knows that his mission desires cooperation with others. He's got to get the lynch mob together, right? He's got to get the gang together, right, to accomplish his mission and goals. But the advice he gives is to go it alone. The story he writes is that he did it alone. You know that Christopher Columbus left Spain. The Nina, the
Santa Maria, right?
Okay.
Right. I remember that in history. I remember they told me that in history books anyway, right?
2 things we don't know.
Right.
We don't know who else was on all those ships. Nobody else's name. But we don't know who else was on there. No other names survived history in a meaningful way.
Right.
We don't know who the people who were there when he arrived lost in the Caribbean. We don't know any of those names. All those names are lost to history. Why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative that he sailed by himself. His whole holiday. It's not called the Nina of Santa Maria holiday. Right. Or Christopher. Don't even acknowledge that he was lost. Lost Christopher Columbus Day.
Right. It's not Lost Christopher Columbus Day, right?
They develop a narrative that they want you to believe in, whether they practice it or not. They don't care. They want to keep you individualized while they're acting collectively. Because that's what divide and conquer is. Divide what? Not divide you from yourself, divide you from others. So I can conquer you. And then I tell you that, then I turn around and tell you, you're an individual. Matter of fact, individual is the highest form of being a human being, right? What are you? We're a corporation. We cooperatively operate together. You're going to be an individual, right?
Right. You're going to be an individual while we doing our thing collectively. right? So we survive. We continue to promote legacy. We continue to have generational wealth. We continue to have generational influence while you die off as an individual.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The only time they let you come together is if you're going to be incarcerated. Then it's mass.
Mm-hmm.
Incarceration's mass. The genocide is mass.
Mm-hmm.
Enslavement is mass. The taking your land with mass evacuations, but they tell you success is going to come through your individual efforts, and it's not. But they still sell those narratives, and we still follow that bad advice.
Wow. Whoo, man, I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I gotta sit down and think on that, man. That was heavy. You know, I mean, I went to clenching my chest a little bit, man. That was heavy because you can see it and you can see the ills. And this is why I say, you know, again, this isn't about being anti anything else besides anti wrong, right? But we definitely want to be pro in our approach. And then for people who need it the most, I know many people watch my podcast, black and white, Hispanic or whatever. But yeah, I am gearing a lot towards my people in this instance, black men, right? Because for me, the understanding is black men are really the lowest on the totem pole, right? And we are probably the one out here wandering the most, right? We still in this wilderness and we wandering. It ain't 40 years at this point. Is well over close to 400 if you want me to say it, but definitely since the advent of emancipation, right? We've been wandering without real understanding of collective. And if we ever get collective somewhere along the line, they try to destroy it, right? But then we help them destroy it, right? And so I'm looking at and I'm hearing you say in this regard, the individual that they continue to promote, the individualism that they continue to promote means that we are still going to get picked off one by one.
Absolutely. And because that's how we operate. That's what we've been taught. It's the lie we've been told, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, and I'm a big language person, right?
Right.
I like to have the best word for the discussion of the matter.
Right.
So I would even add a friendly amendment and say we've been scattered, right? We were bombed out of our homes and we were scattered to the four winds. It's not that we just went out for some bread and got lost. We were forced into the wilderness without guidance, without language and direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a miracle that every day that we survive, it's a miracle that we didn't perish, right?
Right. That's where the relentless thing come into to play.
Exactly. Well, really, that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in. God
Right.
said that I won't allow it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do this to my people, I'm still going to protect them. I'm still going to give them guides. I'm still going to give them symbols and protection. But that's a whole other discussion.
Right.
When we're talking about the perpetrator, this isn't circumstantial evidence. There's direct evidence as the proximate cause of the wandering, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the real cause? In the law, we have approximate cause. Yes, this event occurred, but what was the cause of it? What was the triggering event for the phenomenon that occurred? Did we just do it to ourselves? We just said, hey, you know what? It's just too hot in Africa. Let's find somewhere else. Maybe those guys up north will transport us by boat. Yeah, it might be a bit crowded, but we'll be out of here. So because it's terribly hot, I got to get out of here. This never happened, right?
I ain't gonna lie to you, man. We're also over here just sitting there cracking up with that statement there, right? I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna make a reel of this one, man. I need to remember that time frame. I'm gonna make a reel of this one for real.
Yeah, I think about this stuff day and night.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We left on pain of death. We were kicking and screaming. You think of the 3-year-old wouldn't let go, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We kicking and screaming. Some of us were so determined, we just jumped off the boat.
Right.
I love where I'm from and who I am so much. I'd rather die than go to this unknown place. The
Mm-hmm.
hell that you've already introduced me to. This was just the first level of hell.
Mm-hmm.
All these different levels of hell. So I'm just saying, we got to point to the proximate cause because people start forgetting, right? My
Mm-hmm.
Jewish brothers taught me to never forget, and I do not. My Jewish
Right.
brothers do not forget.
Right.
Never.
And they're gonna remind you. They're gonna continue to remind you too, let you know. And they
Yeah,
definitely 2-3 generations removed, right? But they still gonna let you know.
absolutely. And they
Mm-hmm.
control their words. We're not talking about mentorship anymore, but this is also one of my
Well,
favorite topics.
no. I think we are. Personally, I believe we are, Anu, because we still have to be able to give the people the information so they then can turn to the mentorship that they need.
Good point.
Right.
Good point.
You know, this is just a corralling and moving people in a direction. It is what it is that they need to actually kind of be in the first place. So yeah, this is still mentorship. This is just a piece of it that's not getting talked about, pushing you towards it.
So to connect it directly, then the question is, and you said it earlier, which was the black man is in the worst state of any man in America.
Mm-hmm.
The question is why? Why? Because they killed, they enslaved, and abused our mentors. And then they
Mm-hmm.
dismantled the institutional process of creating black male mentors. They
Mm-hmm.
dismantled it, they laid waste to it.
Mm-hmm.
As a consequence, this is why we're most in need. We're
Mm-hmm.
most in need because we have been the most targeted
Mm-hmm.
for uh, surrogacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to get a surrogate in there, right? White man is our surrogate father, right? He
Mm-hmm.
is he's a he is the worst stepfather that ever was, right? Right?
Definitely had a bonus. He definitely had a bonus father at that point, right?
He's the worst. He divorced our mother, but didn't
Mm-hmm.
leave the home. Divorced our
Mm-hmm.
mother, don't pay the bills. Still comes home, abuse her, abuses us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still got to carry his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still got to live with him. We still got to take out the trash when he says take out the trash, go to bed when he says go to bed. What kind of step by he never loved us, right? He's a,
Mm-hmm.
so he's the worst stepfather that ever was. He's our surrogate father. Until you
Right.
replace him, this is what you get by default,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need mentors more than anyone. And many of us, we want to, because of this abusive relationship
Mm-hmm.
with our white stepfather, we look for anything that we can see that is a replacement for this. Yes, basketball, but wait a minute, you're 5'3" basketball. Anything that I can see. Rap, wait a minute, you stutter and you can't put a decent sentence together. I don't care anything other than being my stepfather. Anything I see enough of, I'll just be that. You've seen the book, Are You My Mother? We're in a scenario of where the little baby elephant's going around saying to the
Mm-hmm.
giraffe, Are you my mother?
Mm-hmm.
To the cat, Are you my mother? This is the black man. Are you my father? Are you my father? Are you my father? No, I'm not your father. Matter of fact, get away from me.
Get away from me.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
your stepfather.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we're in that scenario. And many of us don't even realize it. We feel like, what do you mean that's not my father? We have the same name, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live together. What do you mean? Yeah, I live in the basement in the dark with no lights, and when it rains, I get hypothermia and I'm barely surviving. But
And
hey,
it leaks and floods down here and everything else, but I'm still here.
exactly. It's my fault. I should have built a boat, right? For the
Mm-hmm.
flood. So uh, we're in that scenario. But I'll tell you this, because we're in this scenario, we are uh, very inclined towards the truth, right? So when
Okay.
when you've experienced so much misguidance, when someone comes with a clear argument, it's easier for you to see. You've seen all the lies, and when you see that truth, it's easier to see. And I know for me, one thing that when I came to Islam, I saw was the brotherhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the manliness. Brother
Mm-hmm.
called me up. Christian brothers always calling me up saying, how do you get your women to submit? I was like, first of all, I mean, like, they're probably not submitting like you think, bro. But
boy, that's a whole nother conversation there, boy.
okay, listen, at least I'm allowed to say the word, right?
Right.
Whether somebody's going to follow or not. But you're right, it's a whole different thing. But in America, particularly in Black America, Islam is an advertisement for masculinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's marketing for masculinity. I'm not saying it's intentional, it's actual, because our religion says we've got to have mentorship, we've got to have brotherhood, and you've got to have education, and you've got to stand up and know something, do something, and be something to be a Muslim man. Just that's a basic part of the creed. Therefore, the women respond differently to that. They've been told that if they wait for their order, when they order a man, it's going to at least be these things. And if I know I'm at least going to get these things, then I'm going to respond to it in a different way. Right? So the thing that I was attracted to Islam, first of all, I thought Islam was Malcolm X. It was, right? But it wasn't in the way that I understood it. I didn't understand the religion. I understood the man, right? And to me, Malcolm X was a life of was Muhammad Ali, except for all of life. He was a spiritual Muhammad Ali. He was an educational Muhammad Ali. He was going to take it out. Like, he was my example of manhood. And so it was I was naturally inclined towards the religion when I was looking. And when I get into religion, I'm finding out, oh yeah, first of all, as a man, this is what's required of me. Because God says you do it, not because a woman said to do it. We don't have no 50-50 discussions in this religion. God already told you it's 100% of yours, bro. We don't have a decision. If anything, she can give something back to you, but it's hers. So don't even try it. Don't even start down that road. Right?
Okay.
And so having a high bar set, because men want to have something to aspire to, right? Even the version of manhood that Black men have been given, which is largely arts and entertainment, right? Over subscribing to business fantasies, right? Business entertainment. It is still, no man defines himself by ease, right? Men want to say what they've overcome, what they've accomplished, the weary road that they trod, the distance that they've come to get to this place. So it didn't daunt me becoming a Muslim, saying, hey, you got to do all this. Okay, let's do it. Because when I do it, I'll be somebody. I'll be worthy, right? And we're going to show you how to do it. We're not just going to say, do it, figure it out. We're saying, do it in this way. Matter of fact, day one, we're going to give you a mentor. He's not with you physically, but his example is so powerful in human history that he doesn't have to physically be here.
Right.
Because all we do is talk about and emulate his example.
His examples, right.
Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Wow. Wow. The ultimate mentor, right? And so, all right, Anu, man, I ain't gonna tell you a lot, bro. I want you to kind of close me out with some tools and steps that some brothers can do in gaining mentorship and getting mentorship, right? Because we talked about the problem. I definitely want to get solutions, but I want to ask you in front of our audience, can I get you to come back soon and we can kind of continue some of this conversation?
Absolutely, brother.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, Anu, can you wrap us up with how? Give me 5 ways or 3 to 5 ways that a young man can look for a mentor, and also let them know about the organization you have up in the DC area.
So I'm a member of an organization here in the DC area. It's called the Collective. We do charitable work, and we give back. We're trying to repay the debt. We don't hope to repay the debt, but we hope to make a down payment on the debt, and that's what we're trying to do. A group of successful, in this case, African American businessmen. Um, our business's revenue high as 30 million down to half a million. Okay. Uh, you say, how do we? Okay. First, I'll just say, realize that you need it. I'm looking for mentors now. I'm 55 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
I still need mentors. I need
Right.
a even older lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
They can put me up on game.
Mm-hmm.
I still, for the sunset of my life, I need an older man who could tell me what's coming. Everything ain't what it used to be.
Right.
It still happens to be great, but it
Mm-hmm.
ain't what it used to be. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll say this. My personal insight just very recently, I'll share with you that we need to be connected as men to institutional success, not individual success, but institutional success. A
Okay.
college is an institution of success. Connect yourself to it, right? A corporation is an institution of success if it has been around longer than the lifespan of an individual.
Mm-hmm.
A fraternity is an institution of success. A masjid is an institution of success.
Mm-hmm.
Hold yourself in the areas of life and ask yourself, what institutions of success are you connected to? You have a soul that you started this life with, you're going to end this life with. Is it connected to an institution of success? You have a body. Is it connected to an institution of success? You have a marriage. Is it connected? You have a mind. Is it connected? Education. Is it connected? There are institutions of success for every area of your life. If you're not connected, you're not doing this life right. You're doing this life slower. Your progress is not going to be as great. This life demands Jum'ah.
Mm.
It demands a Jum'ah. This life is meant to be lived in a Jum'ah. There
Right.
is
Collective.
no,
Right.
there's no individual nothing in this. I don't even know the Arabic word for individual. I don't know what it is.
I'm sure it might be, but I don't know it for myself right now. To tell you, sure, I'm gonna have somebody give it to me. But I'm sure it's not, because there's a bigger emphasis placed on the gathering, the Jamaat. You know, the you know the gather collective of people, right? So there's a bigger emphasis on that than just individual rights.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would leave you with, brother. I would
All
say,
right.
young man, hold your life and find where you're lacking connections to institutions of success.
All right. Well, y'all heard it here first, and with on the Get Made podcast with our brother Anu Kemet. And again, we want to thank you as we close out. I'm gonna let him have the last words, and I'm just gonna close out. I want to thank you, Anu, for showing up and giving us this pearls of wisdom, the gems of wisdom. Please, everyone, continue to support the Get Made podcast by hitting those stars. Also, continue to share our information, share this podcast, comment on this podcast. I know there's some good questions that should be asked doing it, and we're definitely going to make sure that we answer those questions. I know if you have any other information where they can reach out to you at, you can let them know here if you like. Um, any social media that you like to point them towards.
The simplest way to access me is Kemet KemetHunt.com. That's KEMETHUNT law.com.
All right. And so y'all heard it here. I want to thank you again. Again, we're going to bring this brother back. I think this is a powerful segment, and I want to continue a conversation with him at another time within the next few weeks, hopefully. Hint, hint. And so with that, y'all have a great one, and we're going to see you next episode.